Wow, Vince, you look great.
Thanks, Chris. You're looking awesome yourself.
Thanks so much. I am super excited that we can finally do this and talk about the top 10 hot trends in the restaurant industry in 2025.
Me too. I'm so excited to be here with you. This is going to be a fabulous day.
Absolutely. And I think there's going to be so much information that people will gain from this to understand all the changes and the uncertainty in the restaurant industry. And after we're done all this, there's actually going to be a report that'll be available for those that sign up.
Perfect. Couldn't agree more. This is a very unusual time, so hopefully we can help provide some guidance for the industry.
These are the pakoras, typically an Indian dish with a mint chutney and a hot sauce. It's the hot sauce made by Italian students, and the pakoras are like Indian, but it's just had a chef's own recipe. So I hope you will enjoy it. It's a chickpea pakora with the onions.
That's fantastic. Thank you so very much.
Well, here we are, Chris. About to enjoy some hot foods.
Yes. How is your heat tolerance?
Moderate.
Yeah.
Moderate. So I'm looking forward to what the students here put together for us. This looks and smells delicious, this first plate, and we got lots ahead of us.
Yeah, let's dig in, and you can't wimp out. You got to use lots of hot sauce there. I love this.
Awesome pakora. Even the mint sauce got a little bit of a kick to it. I love that it's not just hot. It's got a really nice flavor to it.
The fact that this is a vegetarian dish is quite timely because this is #1 on my top 5 list of hot trends for the restaurant industry. This actually, the whole idea of plant-based options on menu came out of a survey that we conducted last year, and we found that 50% of South Asian Canadians said that plant-based options on menu is either very important or important to them, which is such a significant number of people. And a lot of this is based on their background and religion. But it wasn't just the South Asian people. One of the things that we found was 32% of Latin American respondents, 30% of Middle Eastern respondents, and 20% of Chinese respondents all said that plant-based options were important to them. And it's not just these big percentage numbers that are important, but it's also the fact that these are going to be the fastest growing populations over the next 2 decades. So Stats Canada released a study, and they found that South Asian population, Chinese population, and Middle Eastern population are going to more than double over that time frame. And this is really exciting because all those groups that I just listed tend to go out to restaurants more often than anywhere else.
That's awesome.
So this is going to drive a lot of the sales. But when I talk with people about this trend, even though we talk about 5 to 10 years down the road or even 2 decades, these changes are already happening. And so operators have to start to adapt and adjust their menus to reflect those changes. And I already saw this with A&W. They had a veggie masala burger. And instead of a beef patty, they used a paneer cheese patty with South Asian sauces. And I would have absolutely loved to have tried it. And I just didn't get a chance, but it was just this limited time offer. But it shows how operators are starting to reflect some of the changes that we're seeing in Canadian demographics. And even if you're a regular restaurant and a full service restaurant and maybe lasagna is your signature dish, just consider to have a plant-based option on the menu to reflect some of these changes that we'll see in the demographics going forward.
Thanks for sharing all those insights on the shifting consumer demographics, Chris. I'm seeing the same trends when I look at my Crest restaurant behavior tracking service, and we're seeing these same shifts. As you said, they're happening right now and have been happening for a number of years. If I look at the percentage of restaurant visits that are attributed to people of color, it's up to about 33% already, and just 5 years ago it was 7 points lower. So that's a big shift in only a very short period of time because of the immigration trends that you referred to. And this is impacting the restaurant industry significantly. Digging a little bit further, we look at the Gen Zs, and every marketer is interested in Gen Zs, always are. Gen Zs, that percentage of 33 jumps almost all the way up to 50%. Gen Z is the future of food service. The Gen Z cohort is between 13 and 28 years old. And so they're just coming into their income earning years, their disposable income years, and they are influencing more and more the restaurant trends that are going on right now, and really in any retail category, not just restaurants.
Oh, for sure.
So we see, for example, they are all about the, I want it now, I want it quickly. So they love delivery and they love their digital ordering, but then they're also the fastest growing cohort for sit-down meals because again, they're coming into their income earning years. They love going out to restaurants. They love the quick convenience and the low price of the quick service restaurants and retail food service. But again, they're the fastest growing in full service restaurants because they can now afford to spend in those restaurants. And while they do love all day snacking, and really who doesn't, they're also the fastest growing cohort at breakfast because as they come into their income earning years, they get to enjoy the pleasures of office life and that morning commute. So just like everybody else in those generations before, it's all about that grab and go coffee on the way to the office in the morning.
Yeah, and I think the way that this is set up, I know Gen Z loves shareable dishes as well. So to have all the different plates and small dishes that they can share, it's very communal, and I think that's a fantastic trend that we'll see continue to grow over time.
So these trends that we are seeing with the Gen Z, this is the same discussion we were having 15 years ago, but then it was the millennials and the trends that the millennials were driving in the industry. And before that, of course, we know marketers were talking about our generation, Chris, the Gen Xers, right?
They were never talking about us. I was actually trying to think, when did that term come into fashion? Because they weren't talking about Gen X during our time frame that I remember.
I think you're absolutely right. I don't ever remember marketers talking about Gen X.
Well, I think that's fantastic information. I really want to dive in a little bit more.
Let's finish off this plate. Let's do it.
Perfect. Thank you.
So it's a mopu tofu with black beans, tofu, and it's cooked with ginger, garlic, and pork.
Wow, fantastic.
Hope you enjoy this spice now.
Thank you, Sonny.
Thank you very much.
Well, Chris, I see they gave us some rice for this dish. Is that a warning sign? That,
I'm getting nervous about the red color there. I love tofu, so this is,
okay.
I was actually looking forward to this dish because of that.
Excellent.
This is so good.
Oh, here comes the heat.
They disguised it well, because at first it's like, okay, this is really nice texture, and then all of a sudden it just hits.
Spicy is why we're here today. So tell us, Chris, what's the next big trend or hot trend in food service?
So couponing culture is on the rise.
Okay.
And it really makes a lot of sense, given that you need some rice there.
I'm going to take a little bit of rice here. Thank you, Chris.
I'll borrow some of mine. So given that rising cost of living, affordability is such a big issue for most Canadians, it's not a surprise that this is the biggest issue for a lot of Canadians, that they're looking for some form of discounts and coupons. One of the things that we saw last year from Angus Reid is that 80% of Canadians said that they're cutting back on their discretionary spending in order to save money. And one of the big challenges for our industry is the number one way that they're cutting back on spending is they're not going out to restaurants as much. Interestingly enough, the number two way that they're cutting back on their discretionary spending, they're cutting back on dining or the takeout and delivery. So it's really that 1-2 punch of both on-premise dining being impacted as well as the off-premise dining being impacted.
That's a lot of cutting back in the restaurant industry.
That's a lot of cutting back.
Yeah.
So given that that's been the case, we did a survey last year just to ask Canadians what strategies are they using to try and make going out to restaurants more affordable. And when we look at quick service restaurants, it wasn't a surprise that about 36% of Canadians said that they're just going out less often. So that number doesn't surprise me too much. But when we look at some of the other data points, that 30% of Canadians are saying that they're using coupons and discount codes more often than ever. That's something that I don't think I really expected to see. When you look specifically at the Gen Z segment, that 30% climbs to 43%. So they are major users, especially of those discounts, where they are scouring the internet. I've heard stories that they're looking for promo codes on TikTok, through Google, anything to try and save money. So this is a great way for operators to try and maintain some of their traffic levels, as well as discounts and coupons can be very valuable, especially if you've never had that guest before. And this sort of entices them to come in the first time.
Yes.
And ideally, that person will then come back again, pay that regular price rather than just the discounted price, bring their friends along, and then you have that long-term value of that guest. One of the things that I see that restaurants do is they become too reliant on these discount promos. It's almost like they're out every week. And the challenge is that once you start training your guests to wait for those coupons, then people are just going to hold off and never buy anything at the regular price. They're always going to make that purchase at a discounted price. And that's always going to put downward pressure on margins if that's the case. So you have to walk a fine line between using coupons and discounts to build up traffic and bring in new people, but at the same time, have to be cautious because it will impact your margins.
So please eat up while I chat, Chris. Thank you for sharing those thoughts on
my best.
the coupon culture. Just to carry on with one of the comments you just made about looking for the coupons and the deals online, our retail industry analysts here at Circana would call that the treasure hunt. It's all about finding the biggest treasure out there in the form of a coupon. So looking again at my Crest data, just to validate a lot of what your consumer panel is telling you, right now we see that dealing is an increasing part of every food service occasion. It's up to about 30%, so that means 30% of all meals in food service include some sort of a deal as perceived by the consumer. This is up about 1.5 points in the last year alone, about 2.5 points over the last 5 years. And so it's not going away. To your point, consumers are looking for that bang for the buck. What's interesting, along with the coupons that you mentioned, so coupons are number 2 in terms of the deal type that consumers take advantage of. The big shift in coupons that we're seeing, and you already alluded to this too, was it's all going digital. Last year was the first year that digital coupons surpassed paper coupons and physical coupons in terms of that use and the redemption of the coupons. And I know if you read the headlines, we've got a mail strike coming up potentially in the next couple of weeks. I would encourage operators to make sure their digital couponing strategy is up to speed, because they're going to need it again in the near future. But the number one dealing type going on right now is all about the combo, or the bundle deal. That is buying something and getting something else with it at a combined price, at a discount price. And this is a win-win to me for the operators, because it allows them to up their eater check, to grow their profit dollars, even if they're giving away a little bit of margin on that bundle. And then the consumer wins because they're getting that value for money. Again, it's not about the price, the low price all the time. It's about value for their food service budget so that they can afford to keep going out.
And is that what's causing delivery to maintain some of the growth that we've seen? That even though it's more expensive, at the same time, if people are getting a 2-for-1 special, that it does justify the cost of delivery and the tip on top of that.
Well, in fact, yeah, there is a lot of dealing going on with delivery as well, because I think the delivery providers have realized that, well, consumers are worried about the rising costs and the fees, and so they're offering their own discounting on their own platforms. And consumers, again, are taking advantage of that. Plus the fact that if you get a delivery order, you're eating at home, you save on the tip, you maybe save on the beverage, so ways to trade down and still preserve that occasion, saving on the parking and saving on the babysitter, all those little tiny bits and pieces, they all add up. And that's another reason that we're seeing that shift from the on-premises momentum to an off-premises momentum. The final point I wanted to make was all about the consumer perceptions of value and affordability. Over the last 5 years, we know that the operators have had to raise their prices. There's been the increase in input costs, and they've had to pass these on to the consumer, but the consumer can't keep paying more. And so even as menu inflation was 4, 6, 8%, consumers are only paying 2 or 3% more by trading down within the menu, trading down to other operator segments, skipping that beverage, skipping the dessert. So moderating their spend on each visit while still preserving those visits. And then the last point I just wanted to make on affordability and value is that on any average day, 18% of Canadians tell us that they did not visit a restaurant the day before because they just couldn't afford it. Yep. Now that 18% is up by 4 points over the last 2 years, which tells me that consumers increasingly are facing those hardships, and they're conserving their food spending budget and their discretionary budget. Do a little back of the napkin math, that works out to about 1 million people a day incremental who are not going out to a restaurant simply because they can't afford it. So for operators and manufacturers to really hone in on their value strategy and providing that value for money and affordability messaging to the consumer, it will really resonate with the consumers these days.
Yeah, and we see that with our data as well, that we're tracking on a monthly basis the share of Canadians that are going out at least once. And it's the lower income household, not surprising that we've seen the largest pullback in spending. And then when you break it out by the different income groups, especially for quick service restaurants, price is the number one factor that's really impacting their decision to go out to a restaurant. If you go to the sort of the middle income groups, it's really tied between price and value. And I think value is so critical right now that what they charge for what's on the plate has to equal the value for the money that people are spending. Mm-hmm. And then more higher income, they know prices have gone up, and certainly quality has to be part of that as well, but it's all about value when it talks to those people.
Well, value, and you just touched on it, and quality.
Yeah.
So I think we're both counseling the operators to be careful with their low price strategy, because consumers over time will figure out, oh, low price often equates with low quality.
Yeah.
And as we get out of this, this economic uncertain times, people are going to be looking for the quality again. They're going to be willing to pay for it.
And speaking of quality, this was fantastic.
Awesome. I'm ready to have another few
Absolutely.
bites. How about you?
Let's dig in.
Let's dig in. Hello. Thank
I'm
you.
going to go this way actually, so it's facing you. So this is called otak, and it's a Malaysian dish. And what it's made from is lots of fragrant aromatics. So lime leaf, lemongrass, coconut milk, lots of hot chilies, and some egg. And it's pureed, and then we stuff it into a banana leaf, and then we cook it on the grill so it kind of steams.
Okay.
So enjoy.
Well, this again looks fantastic.
It does. I'm looking forward to another new taste experience.
I was wondering, I know there's stunt doubles. I was wondering maybe they have like taste bud doubles as we get a little bit hotter and hotter here because
There
I'm
you
getting
go.
nervous.
Well, she did say something about a lot of chilies, didn't she?
Lots of hot chilies.
That's
I
all
think
that I
so.
heard at that
Keep
point.
your rice nearby.
That is so good.
Oh, wow. You can taste the lime and the lemongrass in there.
So my next hot trend is all about affordable luxury, which seems like such a contradiction in terms, but it does make sense when we talk to Canadians, especially when they're dining out at full service restaurants. So we talked about quick service restaurants and some of the strategies that they're using to make going out to quick service restaurants more affordable. So we wanted to understand, what about full service restaurants? Tend to have a higher average check size. What are you doing to make full service restaurant dining more affordable? And a couple of surprises came out of this. One is that 36% of Canadians said that they're going out less often, which is the identical number for quick service restaurants. And you and I have been in this industry long enough
Yep.
that we know that it's usually full service restaurants that's impacted more than quick service restaurants. So I'm wondering if it's that average check size that's starting to equal between QSR and FSR, that people are not cutting back as much on full service. But I have another thought.
Okay.
One of the other things that really shocked me in this survey is what they're not doing. Based on the survey, we found that only 1 in 6 respondents were trading from more expensive full service restaurants to less expensive full service restaurants. And this is where that affordable luxury comes in. People want that elevated experience. They want to feel good. These are extremely stressful times with everything that's going on. And so what they're trying to do is find a way just to keep some of those indulgences. Now, they don't want to give up the tablecloths, the great service, the premium ingredients, but they are giving up other things. And topping some of the list of things that they're giving up is appetizers, desserts, side dishes, and many are just ordering water with their food and no other beverages. And when we drill into some of the different demographic groups, 43% of Gen Z are just ordering water when they go out to a full service restaurant now.
I agree completely with that, Chris. There was actually a couple of months last year in 2024 where we saw average eater check spend go down in full service for all the reasons that you are saying. We had an increase in people ordering only food, and even an increase in people ordering only a beverage. So they're going out with friends and they're skipping the little munchies and they're just having their cocktail or their mocktail.
I'm glad our numbers are all aligning because this
absolutely,
is great. But that really talks to one of the challenges here is that on the one hand, a restaurant can maintain its traffic level
Yep.
because people are still going out to the restaurant, but it does put downward pressure on the average check size. Short term, that's a challenge for restaurants, but certainly in the long term, as long as restaurants are building relationships with their guests, when the economy improves and they have more discretionary spending, they'll think back to that great experience and they'll want to go back out to that restaurant again. And then when they have more disposable income, then they start buying the side dishes, something more than just water, the appetizers. And they'll think about
Right.
that restaurant when they want to have a special occasion, such as celebrate a wedding or anniversary.
It's like you were saying with the couponing earlier, it's about making that connection with the customer so when they can afford to spend more, they'll come back again.
Yeah. So it's all about bring on the frou-frou, but with a side of water.
Thanks for sharing that perspective on trading down, Chris. I wanted to share with you now some of my thoughts on what's going on in this transformation in the quick service restaurant space, because it's a lot of the same trends and neither of these segments operate within a vacuum. So while I mentioned that we've seen a little bit of softness in the average eater check growth in full service, quick service average eater check is going up a little bit. But that doesn't mean that the people who are going out are spending more per visit. What we're seeing is some of this trade down from full service into quick service, and the full service growth momentum has slowed. And that's a result of what we're seeing in this middle zone. Many will call it a fast casual or an upscale quick service. So it's quick service restaurant level of, well, service, typically with a counter ordering, but maybe with table service. But it's an elevated, slightly elevated price, slightly elevated experience, slightly elevated food quality, and it's just different and new and unique versus the legacy brands in the quick service space that we all grew up with and still love. And they still dominate, but the momentum is shifting now to those smaller operators. Number of reasons for that, besides the trading down that I just mentioned, is you've got the demographic shifts that we mentioned earlier. A lot of these new emerging brands in the quick service space are serving global cuisine. We're seeing tremendous growth in the number of units of Mexican restaurants and South Asian restaurants, Southeast Asian, Mediterranean restaurants. My little neighborhood in Toronto, it's known as being Greek Town, but I tell you, there's more Ethiopian restaurants on that stretch now than Greek restaurants. There's just this transformation going on in the streetscape. So they've got this different level of service. You've got the ethnic community opening up these new restaurant brands, and the inner foodie in all of us can benefit from this change that's going on. And then you also have this, I don't know, stagnation, but you've got the large brands with 500 or more stores in Canada. They're not adding doors like they used to. They're growing very slowly in terms of their footprint. And that has opened the opportunity for, again, these small emerging brands who've always kind of been pushed to the sidelines by the big brands. They're now opening more locations. The independents even are growing, net growing. I know independents in particular are really struggling in this market, but net, we're still getting more openings than we are closings. And that's all because of the availability and the real estate. So with so many retail spaces coming available since the pandemic, restaurants are taking advantage of that space.
Yeah, and it's something that we're seeing in our data as well, that some operators that I've spoken with, they can't find a retail space small enough. So many of them are seeing the trends that on-premise dining has not returned back, and then we've gotten this, received this information from you. But they're looking for a smaller footprint. That means lower overhead. And according to a survey that we had conducted last year, we found that 20% of restaurants wish they had fewer seats in their restaurant.
Okay.
But if you had 200 seats or more, that number then climbs to 43%.
Wow.
So it's a significant number of operators that are saying, we really wish that we had a smaller footprint because people aren't dining out as much as they used to. It's coming back, but it's certainly not what it used to be.
Yeah.
But then it's the high rent levels too on top of that that's really impacting their business.
Sure. And labor. It's hard to get enough staff in a big restaurant as well, even if you could bring in the customers.
Yeah.
But that also, the smaller footprint, obviously, that means there's more takeout and delivery. And that is definitely the case, especially in full service versus certainly where we were pre-pandemic.
Yep.
And that's the last trend I wanted to mention about the transformation in quick service is that these smaller operators, the chains and the independents, they were actually relying more on digital than the larger chains, which may sound counterintuitive because during the pandemic, it was the large chains who had that early mover advantage with digital because they already had their digital platform set. But it didn't take long for these resilient small operators to catch up and now have surpassed in terms of their digital engagement with their customers. So they're finding these small brands, they can really engage that with that one-on-one with their customers in the digital space and compete head-to-head with the large legacy brands in that space much more effectively than they can in the physical space or on the streetscape.
No, I think it's fantastic to see that trend, and it's going to be interesting over the next few years how this changing economic environment, the changing demographics and affordability all collide together and what comes out of it afterwards.
Couldn't agree more. Should we dig in and have a few more bites?
Let's do.
Awesome.
Welcome me back.
Thank you, Sunny.
It's a lamb fall. It's an Indo-American dish. So it's a spicy level that's not good for myself, but it's good for you. So hope you like it. Thank you.
So this
Okay.
is very spicy?
It is, it is.
All right. Thank you, Sunny.
I'm thinking we may need some reinforcements for this one.
You got your bowl of rice next door.
No, I think we need something more dramatic than a bowl of rice.
Okay. What's that?
Can
What
I
do you
get
got?
a little bit of a fire extinguisher? Just because I think if this is too hot, I can help you out, and we'll just make the most of this.
Okay, well, let's hope we don't have to pull the ring on that.
Okay.
I think we'll be
But
okay.
I will leave it here just in case.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your advanced planning on that. Dig in,
Dive in.
and we'll heed Chef Sunny's warning that this is going to be a hot one.
Yeah, I'm gonna try just a little bit first, just to
Are you?
see
Okay.
how I'm gonna.
I'm going to have some fun here. Dig
Okay.
right in.
That is really good.
Starting to come. What's the sauce? That red sauce. When I get into the next trend.
Of course, absolutely.
Okay. Sorry.
You sure?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good right now. So picking up where we left off, I was talking about digital engagement. So the next trend I did want to share with you and our listeners is digital ordering in restaurants. Now we know back during the pandemic in 2020, this skyrocketed. It was up to almost well over 20% of visits. But it's really come back down and calmed down and has stayed pretty steady the last 3 or 4 years at about 13, 14% of all restaurant visits. Excuse me. Oh my. Whew. Okay, I think I'm okay. So staying at that 13, 14% level, which tells me that we've reached this kind of threshold. The people who want to use digital to order are using it, and they're using it regularly, and a lot of people are not using it. It also confirmed the thing that you and I both know. Going to a restaurant is not all about the food, although the food is fabulous.
Yep.
It's about engaging, being with people, the whole experience, the atmosphere.
The frou-frou.
And so as soon as people were able to go back out to restaurants, they did. And they've kept their digital ordering as that, as a very important part of food service, but it hasn't taken over food service. And that's a trend we saw across all of the retail categories that we track here at Circana. Digital peaked in 2020, it has softened again, and it's holding steady at an elevated level versus historic levels, but it hasn't taken over. So some of the trends, here's a news flash for you. Young people order digital more than older consumers, Chris. And that's obvious. You don't need me to tell you that. But one of the reasons for that is the trend I told you earlier about the 45 plus tend to go to sit-down restaurants and full-service restaurants more often. Oh my, that's good lamb.
It's fantastic.
That's good lamb. Older consumers go to sit-down restaurants more often, less opportunity to order digitally there, and therefore that is going to skew the results a little bit more for the younger consumer. But even those younger consumers are only ordering about 2 or 3 percentage points more. It's still under 20% of all of their visits. So while the perception is that young people always have their phone in their hand, they do, but that doesn't mean they're placing all of their restaurant orders on their phone. They also like to go out and socialize in restaurants. Connecting back to one of the trends we were talking earlier about discounting and dealing, it's important to note that about 50% or just below 50% of all digital orders include some sort of a deal. So there's that coupon treasure hunting you brought up earlier, and it really tells me that people are using their digital to save some money, and they're also using it to save time. So we've seen this uptick in digital ordering in the last year, and this is corresponding with the return to office. People on the way to work or taking that morning coffee break and using digital to grab that, to order up that quick grab and go meal occasion. And as we've seen this rise in the last year, we've seen the digital ordering rise. Again, it's very minimal. Digital is here to stay. It's very important. But to me, I don't think we're going to see that big growth again or the big step change in digital engagement until maybe it's AI or somebody does something. I think digital is a great way for brands to engage one-on-one with that curated, customized content just from one brand to one consumer. And I don't think we're seeing that yet with the digital engagement just yet. I think that might be the future of digital, and that's going to get us up over that 13, 14% threshold.
It's certainly on the horizon, and we can see it coming.
Yes, I think so.
And it's always amazing that we kind of come at it from different ways, but there is so much overlap between the trends that you see and the trends that we're seeing. For us, and this ties directly to what you were talking about, is loyalty.
Yep.
And so loyalty programs are my next big hot trend. It's existed for a while, but we are seeing a lot of evolution in this as well. People need a reason to come to a restaurant, and it's not just with great food and fantastic service, but you really need the right loyalty program to incentivize people to come to you simply because there's so much competition out there right now. And so what we found is loyalty programs are so good at attracting and retaining their guest counts.
Sure.
So we did a survey last year, and what we found is that 75% of Canadians that are on a restaurant loyalty program said that it makes them want to go back to that restaurant over and over again. And 84% said that having a restaurant loyalty program made them feel like they got more value when they went to the restaurant. And so that value ties directly into that affordability factor, that people are getting more for their dollar. So that helps with a lot of things. The challenge, of course, is that loyalty programs come in all shapes and sizes.
Yes.
I mean, I grew up where it was, you get stamps and you collect 10
those.
stamps
Yes.
and you get, something for free. But the level of sophistication now, especially on the digital side, there was one restaurant chain, I believe it was in the United States, and that app knew that you were at the restaurant 3 times in that particular month. And so they say, well, if you come a 4th time, we'll give you some free dessert. So again, trying to build up that loyalty, but it wants to make that connection with you as well. It knows that one of your favorite foods are, so that is one way to do this.
Yes.
Now, we talked about discounting, which again, there's a lot of overlap here.
There is. Yep.
But loyalty programs don't just have to be about discounting. There's also exclusivity, which again, Gen Z will absolutely love. They want exclusivity. And so a lot of these loyalty programs that you're on, especially with quick service restaurants, give you access to a secret menu that is not available to the general public.
Ah, okay.
Or in some cases, it's a limited time offer, but you're the first one to get to try it before it goes out to everyone
Right.
else. So the reason why I'm super excited about the loyalty program more than anything else is it's underdeveloped here in Canada. I would say it's more in its infancy, just because when we talk to consumers, what we find is the average Canadian on a loyalty program for restaurants is signed up for about 2.8 loyalty programs. In the US, it's 3.8. So there is some room for growth. Definitely the Gen Z are on more loyalty programs than younger generations.
Yeah.
All that comes from the digital side. But even between Canada and the US, Gen Z in Canada are signed up to fewer loyalty programs than in the US. So a lot of room for growth here, and I think a lot of opportunity for restaurants that want to get into this field and again, build that relationship with their guest.
That all sounds great, and I can tell you, we did some similar studies, not quite as in-depth as yours. One other question we asked is, along with the how many apps do you have, 40% of people said they don't have any restaurant apps on their phone, which just highlights that you're right, there's so much upside, so much growth potential with these apps, because loyalty programs are important across all retail programs. The most popular loyalty program we track at Circana, 70% of Canadians say that they are a member. None of the restaurant apps come anywhere close to that. So the upside potential for restaurant loyalty programs, especially when you think how often we go to restaurants versus, say, other shopping excursions.
Yeah, like grocery stores once a week versus some restaurants that people
Exactly.
will go to every day.
Yes.
But we did ask in the survey, why are people not on a loyalty program, or why are they not on more loyalty
Okay.
programs? And the number one answer was they just weren't seeing the value. So I think this comes back to the restaurant, that they have to convince people that and show and demonstrate that this is good to be on a loyalty program, because here are the benefits. So I think if people understand the benefits, that will certainly help convert them over to a loyalty program. It's just all about the communication side.
Yep. I want to find out what app that was that is offering the secret menu to the loyalty members, because I would definitely sign up for that app.
But it's amazing how well it knows you. And that's maybe scary, but to me, it's absolutely amazing. And I think marketers love it because they collect so much information, and you have a better understanding about who the customer is, when they come, what they're looking for, how long they stay. A lot of great information there.
Okay, last one. This is Nashville fried chicken
All right.
with our house-made chili sauce and spice mix. So it is marinated with buttermilk and a spicy hot sauce. Then it's breaded, deep fried. Then we put the chili oil, and then we put the spice on top. So hopefully this one will blow your ears out.
Great.
Three
Thank you
layers
so
of
much.
spice. Thank you, Chef.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sure we will. I can already sense this one that has the extra layer of spiciness to it, Chris.
Yeah,
You want to go get that fire extinguisher again?
I think so.
Yeah, well, we'll keep it nearby just in case.
Cheers.
Our last dish of the day.
Yes, this has been
Cheers
so
to
much
you.
fun.
This has been awesome.
the food and the staff, everything has been just exceptional here. So while you're burning taste buds,
Yes, thank you.
I will dive into the next trend and doing a bit of a curveball on this one.
Okay.
I'm not going to talk about some new emerging menu innovation or some new technology. There's a lot of those trends going on, but I think the most important trend that should be on the mind of any restaurant operator out there today is data. And we've been talking about data all day long
Yes.
because it informs our decision making.
Yep. There's
Everything-
a topic next to my heart. I love
Yep.
data, Chris.
And this is the thing, it's something that we go based on what the data tell us, and it's not just based on, a gut feeling. We have to have hard data in order to make the right decision. And I would say now more than ever, data is important. So our own survey shows that 50% of operators are currently operating at a loss or just breaking even, compared to just 12% before the pandemic. So there's a lot of restaurants that are still struggling because they've seen that weaker consumer spending, they've seen the rising costs, but this is not sustainable over the long term. And so we have seen an increase in the number of bankruptcies and restaurant closures. So this is why data is so important. You cannot win in the restaurant industry, either in that battle for customers or for employees, without the right data. And so this is where I think a little bit of our bias comes in, because we work together with data all the time and we know how important data is to everyday decision making. So for our purposes, we talk to operators all the time. They may have their own data and information, but the challenge is they don't know what to benchmark it off of. How do you know that 30% operating cost or labor costs or for food costs is the right number relative to the rest of the industry? And sometimes we see operators that are not looking at their labor costs or their food costs. Leads to higher food waste, it leads to overportioning. And on the labor side, are you overstaffing, which is driving up your labor costs, or are you understaffing, which may be saving you money on the labor side, but it's having a direct impact on the quality of service?
If I can chime in, that's
Of course, yes.
very much like what we find. We study consumer-based data. And you're right, the operators all have their internal data, their point of sale systems. They know how much they're selling, and they know, or at least try to keep a handle on their costs. But what they don't know is the consumer. And that's where we come in with that consumer-based data. Because I know somebody, I love this term, the way they put this is, our data is staring at our own belly buttons. But we know what that looks like. We need to know what else is going on out in the market. And that's where the consumer-based data comes in. And the industry-based data that you provide comes in and helps these operators out.
Your timing on that was perfect, because that's when the spice kit it was just right here.
Awesome, yep.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
You saved me.
Just coating, it's coating everything now, and I can feel the heat levels rise. I feel like if we were in a cartoon, my eyeballs would be about half red right now, yes.
But with all the data out there, and there is so much, it's trying to find what the insights are, because what pieces of data are important for one operator are going to be completely different for another one. And so to try and build those insights and talk about some of the emerging trends and areas that they need to focus on. And again, in this economic climate, it's so critical that operators understand their numbers. Without understanding the data, they're not going to survive and thrive going forward. And of course, we both do forecasting as well. It's an area that is just near and dear to my heart, and trying to make sense of all this information and say, this is where we expect the industry to go, is really valuable for operators to understand which markets they should potentially expand in, and where areas that maybe they shouldn't be looking at that they shouldn't be.
Well, and especially in a market like right now that's being transformed day by day, we really need to be able to keep on top of all those changes.
Yeah, I was talking with one operator, and they were talking about how they're on a 30, 60, 90 outlook. And originally I was like, is that minutes or is that days? Because it seems like every minute things are changing and shifting. So I'm hoping things calm down, and we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty, but part of our jobs is to try and make sense of that uncertainty and help operators and guide them through this.
Totally agree. And the big question I get is, as you do, I'm sure too, how do we get through this? And I keep telling people it's to keep reminding the consumer why they love restaurants so much.
Yeah.
And can't come back to this more often. It's for the experience, it's for the socializing, it's for the food exploration and the flavor exploration. And food and drink, but it's about all those things put together. So remind consumers why they love coming out to restaurants, and they will keep coming out.
And we know from all of the data that you've seen and I've seen,
Yeah.
people love going out to restaurants.
They do.
And having an experience like this is fantastic. And
Yeah.
it's just guiding them through all the changes, because it seems like the changes are happening more rapidly than ever before. Something that was like 4 or 5 year trend now gets condensed down to
It does.
this month, this is the trend. And then it changes. So
Very true. Very true.
making our lives interesting.
Well, I've got a long-term trend we can talk about.
Let's bring it on.
And it's a little bit lighter, and it's kind of right in front of you, and that is chicken sandwiches. Now, the chefs here served our chicken sandwich, let's call it open face, without bread.
Yeah.
Chicken sandwiches are growing about 5% per year. Even during the pandemic, they were growing, and more so than burgers and fries and pizza and breakfast sandwiches, which are the other top food items in Canadian food service menus. It's gotten to the point where chicken sandwiches, and how un-Canadian is this, chicken sandwiches are now bigger than donuts in Canada.
That seems almost unpatriotic.
I know, doesn't it?
How come somebody hasn't tried to find a way to combine the two together? Like, if we have waffles and chicken, why can't we have donuts and chicken?
That sounds great. Donuts and chicken. How Canadian is that?
That would be very Canadian,
I would
with maple
definitely
syrup
order
on
that.
top of that.
Definitely order that. So some of the reasons that chicken keeps growing is, well, I mentioned the social media trend, of course. So that is really causing, an extra little spike among the younger consumers. But really, chicken sandwiches are loved by all consumers. And another reason for that is the flavor exploration opportunities. Chicken is just such a great vehicle for flavor. All different cultures, all different cuisines lend themselves very nicely to chicken, and the chicken is just such a neutral flavor. It takes a lot of great flavors, like this Louisiana hot chicken that we are enjoying right here. And then you've also got the ethnic influence. You've got people of different cultures coming to Canada and looking for foods that they like to eat. And many don't eat pork or beef. And so chicken, again, is just that natural progression of what protein they want to add on their meal. So chicken appeals to such a broad range of the consumer demographic. And the last item with chicken is that every restaurant seems to serve some variation on the chicken sandwich. Some will put it in a wrap and some will put it on a pita, but there is still that huge proliferation of chicken sandwich options out there. It's being served in Asian restaurants and, of course, in sandwich restaurants, in chicken restaurants. But the biggest purveyor is actually the burger restaurants. Sell more chicken sandwiches than anybody. Everybody's got it on their menu, and that's why it's just so easily accessible and so fun for everybody to enjoy.
And I love how restaurants try and find some innovative twist just to differentiate themselves from everyone else. So again, it's part of that long-term trend, and it's never going out of fashion.
It isn't.
And
And it's actually growing in that we see chicken sandwiches starting to make their way into breakfast. Now, that's the traditional chicken sandwiches that were always on the menu, and people are simply ordering them earlier and earlier in the day, eating them for breakfast. But now we're also seeing chicken being substituted with or in breakfast sandwiches instead of the ham or the bacon that was there before. We're seeing chicken. So there's that chicken and donut again that you
There we
suggested.
go.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think we want some portion of the profitability for profit margins of anyone that does that. So
I think so, yep.
Yeah.
So there's a fun little food trend for you.
we've created a new trend
I think so.
out of all this.
I think so.
Yeah.
So, Chris, we have one more bonus number 11 trend for our listeners today. And
love
that is
it.
hot and spicy foods, which is why we're here today enjoying this awesome menu of hot and spicy foods. Our data shows that hot and spicy is growing. It's been growing for years. And certainly anecdotally, we see so much spicy food out in the market.
Yeah, and that really makes sense, because going back to what I spoke about earlier with the changing demographics, the rise of South Asian population, Chinese population, Middle East, spice plays such an important role as part of their day-to-day cuisine and diet and some of the foods.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised to see that that's the trend.
Absolutely. And thinking back to the days when we had an office in 2019, we would see the different ethnicities trying to outspice each other in the lunchroom with their spices. And you got the South Asians versus the Southeast Asians, and the Middle Eastern folks and the South American folks all trying to bring in hot sauces to scare each other. I never participated in that. I loved participating in this though today with all the hot trends here.
Well, this has been absolutely perfect.
It has.
And I love spicy food. I was actually surprised that I made it through most of this without running off the set.
Just got a chili, sorry.
Yep. I had that happen earlier. It's like, uh-oh. But
Oh.
it's interesting when you go into restaurants and you do ask for spicy, and
Yeah.
I ask for spicy, and they're like, "Well, is that white people spicy?" Or there's so many different types of spiciness.
Yes,
to it.
there is.
So, but I think that's the joy of cooking, is that you can cater it to the different needs of people.
You really can. And we're seeing spicy everywhere. Seeing some of the big operators come out with spicy beverages now,
Yeah.
or spicy plus sweet. And somebody made a fake word about that. They call it swicy. So sweet and spicy are coming together. And I think we got a little bit of that here on the plate, which is great.
So the next time we do this, should it be over spiciest drinks?
I'll drink to that. Sure, let's do that.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks. Be sure to visit restaurantscanada.org or circana.com to download the free report.
And of course, we want to thank George Brown College and the Chef's House for the amazing, wonderful service. The chefs were amazing. The students were super helpful. We really appreciate all their support.